felt like you were destined for something truly grand, yet you find your feet are stuck in the mud of deep hesitation. You desire the heights of success, but are you actually building your dream today? Or are you just waiting for the perfect, calm moment to arrive? The ocean whispers promises of greatness, yet many of us stand on the shore, paralyzed by the scale of the sea and the weight of our dreams. We watch the horizon, hoping for a sign, while the very ground we stand upon is slowly being reshaped by the relentless and uncaring passage of time. Ask yourself the hardest question of all. Is your life moving toward a grand success, or are you drowning in the quiet swamp of eternal stagnation? The clock is ticking, and the tide is rising. Every second you spend waiting is a second you lose in the construction of your own magnificent legacy. Meet Elias, a man with a mind full of wonders. He dreamed of building a crystal castle that would shine brighter than the sun on this shore. His hands were skilled, his vision was clear, and his heart was filled with the ambition to create something the world had never seen before today. But Elias had a secret enemy that lived within his own mind. He was a prisoner of the idea that everything had to be absolutely perfect. He would spend hours staring at a single line, fearing that if it weren't perfect, the entire structure of his grand dream would eventually crumble away. He would look at the beach and say, "Not today. The wind is far too strong and the sand is much too wet for my foundation." He would crumple his masterpieces, throwing them into the corner, convinced that a better day with better conditions would surely arrive for his great work. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The floor of his office became a graveyard of ideas that were never given a chance to live. His perfectionism was not a tool for excellence. It had become a heavy iron cage that kept him from ever touching the sand outside his door. He waited for the stars to align, for the wind to stop, and for the tide to stay away forever. But the world does not stop moving. He was an architect of shadows, building empires in his mind while the real world outside remained empty and void of his promised crystal towers. Time does not wait for the hesitant heart. It flows like a river, carving paths through the stone and washing away the footprints of the idol. Outside, the world was busy. Nature followed its own rhythm, indifferent to the man who sat inside, waiting for a permission that would never actually come. He was rich in plans, but poor in progress. He had 1,000 beginnings, but not a single ending to show for all his hard work. We often mistake preparation for action. We think that by planning every detail, we are moving forward, but we are often just running in place. The tragedy of the perfectionist is that they would rather have nothing at all than something that isn't absolutely flawless in its very first iteration. Elias looked down on the simple structures others made, calling them crude and unworthy. While he himself had built nothing but a mountain of paper, he slept in a room full of ghosts, the ghosts of the buildings that could have been, if only he had been brave enough to be imperfect. The seasons turned like the pages of a book. While Elias waited for his perfect son, others were busy working with what they actually had. They didn't wait for the perfect wood or the perfect weather. They built shelter from the storm and lived their lives while the architect just watched. He believed himself superior because of his grand vision, but vision without action is nothing more than a beautiful hallucination that helps nobody at all. Time is an ocean, vast and deep. It does not care about your intentions. It only responds to the physical marks you leave upon the world. The energy of youth was fading away, replaced by the heavy load of regret. The castle was still just a dream on a dusty shelf. A small, finished hut is infinitely better than a grand palace that remains unstarted. One provides warmth, the other provides only a cold, hollow silence. The cycles of the moon dictate the movement of the sea. The tide was beginning to claim what was left on the sand, slowly but surely. The boundaries between the land and the sea were blurring. Nature was reclaiming the space that Elias had failed to fill with his crystal towers. He felt the chill in the air. The perfect moment he had spent his entire life waiting for was being replaced by a moment of reckoning. His blueprints were his only children, yet he had kept them locked away from the world, never allowing them to face the sun or the rain. The night arrived with a heavy weight. The atmosphere was thick with the scent of salt and the sound of a coming, inevitable change of time. He had always thought he had more time. He thought the ocean would wait for his masterpiece, but the ocean waits for absolutely no man's ego. Now, the very thing he spent his life perfecting was at risk of being lost forever in the dark. Hungry depths of the rising Atlantic tide. The perfection he sought was dissolving. The lines he drew with such care were blurring into a mess of blue ink and gray shadow. The sand had run out. The time for planning was over, and the time for consequences had arrived with the force of 1,000 waves. In one violent night, the ocean demanded its space back. The walls of his sanctuary could not withstand the pressure of the real world. His life's work was suddenly at the mercy of the elements. All those years of careful drawing were being reduced to wet, useless scraps of paper. He reached for it, worked for them, screaming into the wind, but the waves were stronger than his voice and faster than his aging, tired hands could move. The ocean took them all, the towers, the gardens, the grand halls of his crystal castle, everything he had kept only in his heart and on paper. The tragedy isn't that he failed to build his castle. The true tragedy is that he never even allowed himself the chance to try. A lifetime of perfect drafts vanished in a single hour. Nature doesn't reward the beauty of your plans. It only respects the strength of your structures. He stood there, empty-handed, while the sea returned to its rhythm. The beach was as bare as the day he first arrived many years ago. His hands had no calluses from labor, only the stains of ink from 1,000 corrections. He had nothing to show for his long life. The world moved on, indifferent to his sorrow. The sun began to peek over the horizon, illuminating the wreckage of a life spent in waiting. The simple huts had survived. They were battered,
built these
yes,
with their hands,
but they were real. Their
strong
creators
enough
had
to
something to
weather
repair,
any storm.
while Elias had nothing but ghosts. He finally understood the cost of his perfectionism. It hadn't protected his dream. It had ensured that his dream could never actually exist in reality. The ocean is a mirror. It reflects back to us the truth of our actions or the emptiness of our hesitations, without any judgment or any mercy. Every ending is a beginning, if one is brave enough to see it. But for Elias, the realization came when his sun was already setting fast. He touched the sand for the first time in decades. It was cold, it was grainy, and it was perfectly imperfect in its raw, natural state. Do not let your life be a series of almosts. Do not let the tide of procrastination wash away the potential of your unique and powerful soul. It is better to build a castle of sand that falls than to never build anything at all. At least you will have felt the grain. The light of a new day is a second chance. It is a call to action for every heart that is still beating with a dream. Stop waiting for the tide to turn in your favor. Stop waiting for the perfect wind to fill your sails. The only time is now. Build your castle today, even if it is just a handful of sand, even if it is messy, even if it is not what you imagined. Success is not found in the absence of mistakes. It is found in the courage to keep building, despite every single one of those inevitable flaws. There is a deep, profound joy in the doing. There is a sacred magic in the act of creation that no blueprint light can ever truly capture. Your dream deserves to breathe. It deserves to exist in the sun, even if it is only for a few hours before the next tide comes. Start before you are ready. Start when you are scared. Start when you have nothing but your two hands and a vision in your head. The universe rewards movement. When you begin, the paths start to clear, and the help you need begins to find its way to your door. Your action inspires others. Your courage to be imperfect gives everyone around you the permission to try their own hand at building something beautiful today. Don't let your dreams be washed away by the slow, silent tide of procrastination. Reclaim your time and make your mark upon the shifting sands. You are the architect of your own life. Will you leave behind a legacy of finished huts or a graveyard of perfect, unbuilt palace dreams? Flip the glass. Reset your clock. Every moment is a new opportunity to choose action over waiting and reality over the shadow of perfection. The tide will always come, but you decide what it finds when it arrives. Build something that matters. Build something real. Build it right now. Join us on this journey of creation. Subscribe today and let us build our futures together, one handful of sand at a time. The world awaits.